Do you want me to just get started, or are you going to introduce? We didn't actually talk about that.
You can go ahead and get started, Amy.
Okay, awesome. So hello, everyone. Sorry for that little transition there. My name is Dr. Amy Mazulis, and I am a clinical psychologist. And I work currently with June Care, which is a teletherapy company for teens and young adults. I'll introduce myself in a minute, but we're here to talk a bit about the transition to college in terms of mental health. How can you manage your mental well-being in this important transition that's coming up? I believe some of you out there are in the process of transitioning to college right now, or have really just recently moved on campus. It's a really big change and a big opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about how to make sure that you are taking care of yourself so that you can be successful with the goals you've set for yourself. So a little bit about me before we get started. As I said, my name is Dr. Amy Mazulis. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin at Madison with both my master's and my PhD in clinical psychology. Before that, I got my undergraduate degree at Harvard. I've been on the faculty of a university in Seattle for 15 years, where I teach PhD students and also do research on adolescent depression, self-injury, managing stress, and managing life transitions. So all of my research and clinical background is in adolescent and young adult mental health. Right now, I'm currently in that faculty role half-time, and the other half-time, I am working with June Care as co-founder and chief clinical officer. And as I said, that's a teletherapy platform devoted exclusively to teens and young adults. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Just talk a little bit about why the transition to college is a place where we want to be attending to mental health. What are some of the sort of opportunities and challenges that come with a transition such as this? Talk about top 10. We're doing a David Letterman style, top 10 mental health tips to start strong in this new endeavor in your life. Leave time for questions and answers at the end. You are very welcome to ask questions live. You can put them in the chat. You can unmute your mic and say them out loud. I really enjoy having more discussion-based presentation. If you'd rather hold them to the end, you can do that as well, and we'll make sure that we leave time. So this transition to college, it's a really exciting time. I come from this both professionally but also personally. So I have a college sophomore. So last year was her first year in college. And then I have a high school senior who's in the process of applying right now. So I've seen that process from sort of beginning to end in terms of the, all the work and effort and excitement that goes into applying to colleges, all the, drama and anticipation about those acceptances and rejections and making the decisions about where to go and all the factors of that, all the, what's the right fit and the cost and the academics and the social life and the size of the campus and the location. All those are big decisions. And all of it we just sort of put out there is like, that is the goal. Get into college and then we'll go. And I think there's a little bit of this expectation that that is when life will start. And to some extent, that's true because there's a lot of really new and exciting opportunities that come in the transition to college. Academically, this is a time after, especially in high school, many years of being told exactly what to take and exactly when to take it. You often experience a lot more academic freedom in college, a lot more opportunity to choose your unique academic path. And it's a time to start that transition from the sort of guided education of K through 12 to the time in which you'll become a working professional. And so college can be a time in which you're not just taking classes and learning skills, but really exploring future career and professional paths. Socially, it is a really exciting and new time. All sorts of opportunities to kind of recreate and redefine yourself socially, make new friends, build new social relationships. All that work that goes into high school. I talk with a lot of really high achieving students who are like, I didn't have any fun in high school because I was working so hard to get into college. I'll have fun in college. And so that's an important aspect of this transition, is to have that fun. And then finally, this is happening at a time when, most of you are turning sort of, 17, 18, 19 years old in this time. This is also just developmentally the transition from adolescence into young adulthood. And college is one marker of that. And this is true for folks who also go into the workforce at this age too. where you have just a lot more freedom, a lot more choices, and a lot more independence. There will not be teachers or parents often guiding the decisions that you make as much. And so those present a lot of amazing opportunities for us as we move forward. With those opportunities, I think, come a lot of challenges as well. Academically, um, there probably, I mean, it depends a little bit, of course, on what your academic preparation was in high school, but for many, many students, the rigor of college level classes is a new level of challenge. Students who were successful in high school, and by definition, most of you were because you're now in college, so you're successful in your attempt to get admitted to college and be excited about that. You're going to be surrounded by a whole bunch of views, a whole bunch of people who were similarly successful and similarly high achieving. And that means that the whole level, you kind of leveled up. And some of those classes can be challenging, and balancing demands when you have a lot less structure can feel new and occasionally overwhelming. So it's one of the challenges academically that's going to come up. Socially, there's a lot of research to suggest that the first quarter or the first semester of college can be a time when loneliness is really high. It takes time to build new social connections. It takes time to make friends. And in that time, in that interim time, you don't have the same social supports that you might have had at home or in high school. And so it can be a time when there's loneliness, there's uncertainty, some of those same insecurities around social anxiety or what kind of person am I and who do I connect with can be challenging. And so it's not uncommon to find that in the transition to college, people feel that socially they are not getting their needs met. And finally, all of that freedom and choice and new opportunity comes with a lot of responsibility. People are not going to be managing your schedule for you in the same way, managing your time and managing your choices. And that means that you have to take a lot more responsibility for setting your own boundaries and sort of evaluating the amount of risk that you want to take in your personal life and your social life. And none of those is necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of like two sides of the same coin. With every great opportunity also comes a parallel challenge. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. In the transition to college, we know that a really significant proportion of college students report some amount of mental health concerns. So 65% of college students say that their concerns with the top mental health problems, we'll go through those in a minute, have in some way negatively impacted their college experience or their education, either made them unhappy or dissatisfied, or made it hard for them to kind of commit to the academic goals that they have set for themselves. And so if you find that for yourself in this transition, in this fall, first thing I want you to hear is that you're not alone. There are a lot of students who find that this is a difficult challenge, even if we're excited for it, even if this was our top choice school, even if it all felt good. The truth is that any big transition is a stress in and of itself. Stress is really just defined as any new experience that you have to respond to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad one. You could be excited and still find it challenging. There's some pretty common, things that tend to come up in the college transition. And so again, want you to be aware that you're not alone if these are things that you struggle with. So some amount of students in this transition find that issues they've had in the past around attention or learning challenges, maybe they were or not a significant concern in high school, but either continue to be a concern or reemerge as a more significant challenge with the increased academic demands of college. And so some folks find that managing attention, managing studying, managing executive functioning, and balancing their schoolwork, that these can be some of their challenges in the first semester. Life goes on even in college, and there's a lot of opportunities for new kinds of stressors. And so a significant portion of students have stressful or traumatic events happen in their first few months or year at school. These can be school related, they can be personal, they can be completely not related. Because life just continues to happen even when we're in school, and yet you're there in a new place, in a new setting, and may or may not have the same resources that you used to have to deal. So that's really common that people find that they have to deal with a kind of stressful or traumatic event. In terms of mental health conditions or symptoms, anxiety and depression remain the two most common problems reported by college students, and the two most common referrals to college counseling centers. So anxiety can include both general anxiety, so this is finding yourself worrying or anxious or on edge about lots of different subjects, school and social life and finances, and maybe even concerns from back at home, to very specifically social or performance anxiety. Social anxiety looking like having a difficult time feeling comfortable but to make new friends, feeling particularly anxious or self-conscious in social settings, having a hard time initiating those social interactions, which might be necessary to making new friends. And performance anxiety looking a lot like having difficulties with test anxiety or asking questions in class or advocating for yourself when you need it. Those are all really common problems reported by students in the transition to college. And depression remains one of the most significant mental health challenges for adolescents and young adults in college and outside. But you'll see there that more than a third of college students are reporting clinically significant concerns with depression. That remains the number one referral to counseling centers. Depression, we think about depression as being sad, and that can be true. Lots of folks experience sadness with depression. But at this age, often it can also look like feeling disconnected, feeling like nothing matters, feeling like nothing is fun. Can also look like feeling really irritable. So if you find yourself feeling sad or down, but also maybe feeling like none of this is fun, I'm not enjoying things, I can't seem to care, low motivation, irritable, those can all be signs of perhaps the early stages of depression, and that's a really common situation. So those are some of the things that are often why students might end up reaching out for mental health support in the transition to college. What I want to spend my time talking about is, so what I want you to hear from that is it's really common. It is really, really common to struggle in the transition to college. And I think there are things that you can do to reduce the likelihood that you need more support. And that's what we're going to do in this top 10. And again, please feel free to interrupt at any time with questions. So number 10, the best way that you can take care of yourself is to know yourself and what you need. So do a self-inventory of what makes you, you, and what you need to function well on a day-to-day basis. Is it sleep? Is it exercise? Are you a bit of an introvert and you need a little bit of alone time? And maybe you ended up in a double and like you literally never have 5 minutes in your room by yourself. Do you need a schedule? And all of a sudden this like, what? I only have classes 2 days a week. What do I do the other time? That, whatever it is that you need, that is an important thing to know. And I think about myself, and I have, a daughter who's a sophomore in college and a daughter who's a senior in high school. And we would answer this slightly differently. I'm a big sleep need person. I have to get to bed, at a pretty decent time, regular time. And I really need 7 to 8 hours of sleep to be a functional human being. I also really need to exercise regularly, almost every day. Those are the biggest things to me. I like alone time, don't get me wrong. Like I like having a to-do list. There are things I need, but I start with the basics. My younger daughter needs to eat well. She has to get up and have a good breakfast. That is the number one thing. She cannot go more than about 30 or 45 minutes without food, or it is hard for her to recover for the rest of the day. So things like what time is she getting breakfast and how is her number one thing to solve in the day. And her other one is social connection. She needs to feel like she has friends and is socially connected. She needs to text me and her sister. She needs to connect with her friends on Snapchat. That's what she needs. My older daughter, the one who's in college, she needs a schedule. She needs a to-do list. She needs to know that she's going to get up and do this every day. We're all slightly different people. Everybody needs all of these things to some extent. But the best thing that you can do is know who you are when you are functioning well. What did you learn about yourself in high school? What are the times in which you are at your best emotionally, psychologically, performance-wise? What was going on that you have learned? Because no one's going to make those things happen for you but you. And the only way you can set up your life to protect your mental well-being is to know something about what makes you function well. Number 9. Yes, and this is a psychologist telling you that before we deal with your mental health, we need to deal with your physical well-being. The reason for this is that when your body is functioning well, it's a lot easier for your mind to function well. And so some of the things that you can really attend to just start off with your best foot forward, make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're eating food, yes, make sure there's some vegetables and fruits and vitamins and minerals in your meals every day. Drink plenty of water, and whatever it looks like for you, whether you're a really serious hardcore athlete or I go for a couple walks every week, get a little bit of exercise, because when your body is well nourished and well cared for, it is much easier for your mind to not feel so overwhelmed. We're all a function of homeostasis. The whole human body and mind, physically and psychologically, functions from a point of homeostasis. When we are well regulated, we can handle everything better. And most of us know this through sleep in particular, that when we haven't gotten enough sleep, if we stayed up late writing a paper or studying for a test, and it may not be the first day, it may be the second day, that starts to catch up with us. And we find ourselves being more easily frazzled, irritable, harder to make good decisions. We make mistakes on other things that we're doing. So you've seen it happen probably that when you're sleep deprived, other things don't work as well. And that is true in a big picture. And again, in college, it becomes really easy to not pay attention to those things because no one else is doing it but you. So think about what you need to do to take care of your body. Number 8, having a daily to-do list can be really helpful. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like specifically. One of the things that is probably the biggest adjustment from high school to college is the lack of a daily schedule. College classes are organized a lot differently than high school typically is. You are typically not in one place from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock every day. You may have huge chunks of days without classes. You'll have some classes that only meet once a week, maybe twice a week, different schedules on different days. And yet most of us function best when we have something that looks like some predictable and regular schedule in our lives. And so in the absence of the world sort of putting that schedule on you, you putting that schedule on yourself can be helpful. And one way to do that is to have a daily to-do list and to be specific and to remember to schedule in even the basics. So I have an example up there. This is a pretty common sticky note for a lot of us, right? Class, mini mart, lunch, gym. Right? I'm just reminding myself, those are the things I need to do today. I need to go to class. I remember I have a couple things I need to pick up. I need to go to lunch. And yeah, I want to try and get to the gym and work out. But an alternative to that list would be something that's like classes at 10 o'clock. After class, I'm going to go to the mini mart. And I remember I need pencils, cereal, and bananas to have in my room for snacks. 12 o'clock is lunch, and I'm meeting Jesse, and I'm meeting him at the dining hall. So I'm going to remember that. And that means if 12 to 1 is lunch, a little time to digest, and I could go to the gym from somewhere between 2 and 4. And then that means this afternoon, oh, right, I was going to text this girl I met, Sneha, and see if she wants to have dinner. That's the kind of to-do list that'll help you put both some structure on your days, but also make sure that things that you need to do get done. And that is one way to put some structure on your life. Okay. We're dealing with the top 10 through the top 3. Some of those are just like good basics life for good basic functioning. Number 7, the power of people. So take time to invest in supportive relationships to take care of you. Social support is one of the number 1 ways in which we maintain mental health. And we do this, social support functions in 2 ways. One, it keeps us going, like it keeps us mentally well when things are going well. And it's our safety net when things are stressful. So the reason that we invest in our social relationships is not just because they give us pleasure most of the time and social support most of the time. It's that when we are particularly stressed or we are really struggling, we have good, solid relationships of people that we can ask for help. So take the time, make the time in your new schedule between all the signing up for clubs and the decorating your dorm room and the getting started with your classes to invest in those relationships. And those are probably 2 types of relationships in this transition to college. So one is maintaining contact with the important friends and family from pre-college. And you know who those people are. It's probably not every single kid you went to high school with. It's probably a select number of kids that you are going to remain in good contact with. But make the effort to do that. Send the text, send the Snapchat message, set up a video call, and connect and stay connected with the people that you already have relationships with. And college is a time to start investing in new relationships. And that takes time. As I said, one of the biggest challenges in the transition to college is loneliness and the time it takes, because you don't just instantly become close to new people. You can pretty instantly, depending on how sociable and outgoing you are, you can find someone to go to dinner with, find a party to get invited to. That stuff is not super hard, not easy for all of us. I'm a pretty introverted, socially anxious person, so sometimes that is actually pretty hard for me. But no matter how extroverted or sociable you are, or introverted or socially anxious you are, It takes time to develop meaningful relationships. And the only way to do that is to do the things. So you're going to want to make time in this transition to seek out activities that give you opportunities to make new friendships. That could be making sure you go to events in your dorm or on campus. That can make sure that you find a club or an organization to join. That can make sure that in class you get there early enough to sit next to the same one or two other students, exchange numbers, set up a study group. And those of you out there listening who are on the more introverted or socially anxious side, who aren't necessarily the ones who are going to go to the party down the hall in the dorm or feel comfortable joining a great big group, or you're not rushing a sorority or fraternity, you might have to challenge yourself to take the initiative to reach out to one or two people and build some one-on-one relationships. Classes and clubs or organizations can often be great strategies for doing that. Finding someone in a class that you can form a study group with, or ask a question, share homework assignments with, review each other's work. That can be a great way to start getting connected. You have some shared interests if you're in the same class, or finding one organization that fits your values and your priorities to try out a club or an organization. Even if you're not a joiner, I really challenge you to take the initiative and to try. So it's two kinds of relationships that we need to be fostering in this transition to college. We need to be maintaining the relationships that we had before that we want to maintain. We need to be investing in our new relationships. Number 6, okay, this is the most psychologist-y thing you're going to hear me say. You're going to want to be setting SMART goals for yourself. And SMART actually is an acronym that has meaning. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals. This means that to-do list that we talked about a couple minutes ago, we're going to make sure that the things on it are really specific and really point us to where we want to go. So for example, rather than saying, this week or tomorrow I'm going to study for computer science, a SMART goal would look like, on Tuesday, I'm going to go to the open office hour for my CS class. And on Sunday, I'm going to spend 2 hours studying for my midterm. So that's the difference between a general goal. Like a general goal may be, I want to do well in my computer science class. It might even be, I want to get an A in my computer science class. A SMART goal breaks down the very specific action items that you can do to move towards that goal by making sure you're going to an office hour, making sure you're dedicating the time studying. Same thing socially. I want to reach out to one new person this week, and I'm going to invite them to join me for a meal or for coffee. You may have to decide who that person is. Maybe it's someone from that CS class. Maybe it's someone from your dorm. But your goal for yourself is to find one new person and issue an invitation. Maybe a self-care goal is, I'm going to try to be getting enough sleep. Good goal. The SMART goal version of that is, on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday, I'm going to go to bed by 11 o'clock. Still giving yourself time other nights to stay up later, not trying to overachieve and say, I'm going to go to bed by 10 o'clock every single day of the week. And then 2 days in, you haven't done it. And you're like, that goal's out the window. So the SMART goals are ones that are reasonable, but they're also specific and they point in the direction you want to go. And consider setting goals for yourself on a short-term basis, like a week-by-week basis for academics, for social life, and for personal well-being. What would help you this week move yourself forward to the things that are important to you? Number 5, college, although it has a lot of unscheduled time, can get very busy very fast. Classes can take a lot of work. There's a lot of work sometimes just with the day-to-day stuff of college. You got to go places for food. You got to go places to get materials. You got to meet up with the study group or the class or whatever it is that you've decided to do. And sometimes it can be hard to do the things that give ourselves a meaningful break. But when we have the chance to sort of have quiet, reflective time, typically our mind is in a better place, and that overall supports our mental well-being. In particular, if you are prone to anxiety, scheduling quiet time, intentional quiet time can be really good. And my use of the word intentional is intentional. So, I'm a big believer in things that are like fun and relaxing, watching shows, watching YouTube, playing video games. Totally a big believer in that, 100%. You should do that. That's good for you. And it's not the same thing as doing things that are intentional in quieting your mind down. Things that are intentional may be things like practicing mindfulness. And I really encourage you to consider some of the apps, even when you don't have to pay for the full subscription, like Headspace or Calm, that have guided meditations and mindfulness activities. Think about creating on Spotify or Apple Music a playlist that is sort of more meditative or calming music. Think about things that don't involve a screen. Think about reading a book or doing a puzzle as a way to give your brain a break from the socializing, the academics, the heavy screen time, and even the things that are fun and relaxing, like shows or video games, but still involve a lot of digital interaction. Think about things that might give your brain a little bit of a break. And what we know from a pretty extensive body of research now is that that can help reduce stress and anxiety in particular. All right. Number 4, one of the fun parts of college is the social life. And I actually think this is a really important part of college. And you'll remember that I said back in both opportunities and challenges that the opportunity to have fun, to make new social connections, to have a little bit more freedom is one of the benefits of college. And with that comes the challenge of learning to set your own boundaries and keep yourself safe. So I am not going to be the person, I'm not going to be the adult that tells you not to party. I don't think that's reasonable, and the data doesn't support that. The vast majority of college students are doing some amount of experimentation with drugs or alcohol. And so I'm not a big believer in burying my head in the sand and pretending that this doesn't exist. What I'd rather do is say, okay, we know that this is going to be an option for you. We know that there are going to be parties on campus, small parties, big parties. We know that there are going to be opportunities to vape, to use drugs, to use alcohol. So let's just say that that's true. What are you going to do about it? And so I encourage you to just have a plan, set parameters that fit your values and your risk comfort level. And that may not look like mine or my daughters or your roommates or your other person down the hall. You may be more comfortable with some risk taking and some partying than other kids, and you may be less comfortable than some. I don't know who you are, but you should know who you are. And that means you going into those social situations with a plan. And that plan should include what you're comfortable with and a plan that keeps you safe. And I'll give as the one example that, one of my daughters is, really a quite small human. She's barely 100 pounds dripping wet. And I always tell her, I'm like, you gotta really think about it before you walk into that party, because it's really easy to walk into a party with she happens to live on a dorm that has a lot of the football players. I mean, most of those football players are 2 to 3 times her body mass. She cannot drink the same amount of alcohol that they can drink and have the same effects. She has to know what she can handle. She can handle a couple drinks. They might be able to handle a lot more without showing different effects. So that's her. And so she can go in saying, okay, I'm going to have 1 drink or 2 drinks. Maybe it's 3 drinks. I don't know. I don't ask her to tell me, but I want her to have a plan. And it should fit your values and it should fit what you're comfortable with that keeps you safe. Keep it in mind. Know exactly what goes on your campus. Know what the penalties are going to be if you're caught with underage substances, and how comfortable are you with those risks. Think about your own personal safety and getting back to your room and keeping yourself safe. And then finally, check yourself. The reason that many of us are drawn to substances is that substances sometimes take the edge off of that anxiety and depression and loneliness. And that can be highly attractive. And so do a gut check every once in a while. Are you using any of these substances to self-medicate? And if so, is that how you want to be managing your mental health? Or might that be a sign that there may be other things that you need? So just be mindful of that. Have a plan, know that this is going to come up, and think about what it is that you need to do to keep yourself safe and live according to your values. Number 3, practice self-compassion. College is not easy. It can be challenging. It can also be disappointing. Sometimes we're so excited, and then it's harder or less straightforward than we were expecting. Sometimes it's more fun than we're expecting. I don't know what it'll be like for you. But no matter what it is, I hope you can treat yourself with kindness and respect, and most importantly, with patience. I really encourage you to come up with some self-affirming and kind thoughts for this transition for yourself. This may be things like, I know it's going to take me time, and I'm going to be patient with myself. I know I'm not alone. I know that I can ask for help if I need to ask for help. I trust that I'm doing the best that I can. Because One thing that we know happens with mental health is that one thing is the stressors itself, right? School is tough or it's harder to make friends than we think. And then the second is how we treat ourselves about it. So if we're struggling a little bit with our classes or we're struggling to make friends, and then we also say to ourselves, it's your own fault, you're not working hard enough, you're lazy, you're not sociable enough, people don't like you, then not only is the stress there, but the stress is there, plus you're beating yourself up about it. We may not always be able to get rid of the stressors themselves. School may be challenging and it may be hard to be making friends right away. But one thing you do have control over is how you treat yourself when things are stressful. And so I'm going to encourage you to practice self-compassion and think about things that you can be saying to yourself that allow you to be kind to yourself. Okay. Number 2. So this kind of comes back full circle to number 10 about knowing yourself. So if you know about the things that you need to function well, you probably also know about your own push points. What are the kinds of things that particularly stress you out? My older daughter really gets stressed out when she just has a lot on her plate, when she's very, very busy, and particularly busy academically. So if she's a math major, she has a problem set due and a paper due and a test all in the same week, that's going to be her stressful week. My younger child, much more interpersonally focused, doesn't tend to get frazzled by a lot of schoolwork, but is really frazzled by the social dynamics of who got invited to the party on Friday night and who didn't, and who said what on that group text thread, or was she or was she not included in something? That stuff can really push her buttons. So it's important for each of them to know that, because if we know the kinds of things that in particular stress us out, we can also do this thing called coping ahead, meaning I know that coming up is going to be something challenging. I work with a lot of college students who, one of the things that's challenging for them is their family relationships. And so one of the things that they have to cope ahead for is not so much their life on campus, but their life when they go home. Like, actually on campus, I do pretty well, but then I have to go home and I have to deal with the conflict with my parents or the conflict among my siblings. But you know you best. What are the things that tend to stress you out? And if you see them coming, how can you plan ahead for that? We can't always, don't get me wrong. Like, sometimes things sneak up on us and we don't have any control over it. But sometimes we can plan ahead. So if you do know that things are coming up, what are your personal coping resources? What are the things you can do that kind of fill up your bucket so that you're a little bit more resilient for that time of stress? Is this a time when you might need to schedule a little bit more sleep or exercise, right? Like maybe that week, for my older daughter's example, the week of the problem set and the test, and the big project due, maybe that is not also the week to schedule 3 new social interactions or trying something out for the first time. Maybe that's the week to say, all I'm going to do is get through those academic expectations. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not going out, I'm getting to bed on time, I'm getting a good night's sleep, and I'm getting to the gym because the exercise helps me. My younger daughter, it may be that, she knows that this is rush week and there's going to be a lot of social stuff going on. Maybe this is a time she stays connected with her sister or her best friend from home, so she feels socially connected and less vulnerable then to the ups and downs of the social setting of what's happening on campus. So I don't know what your stressors are, but you probably know what your stressors are. And I don't know what your coping resources are, but you probably know what they are. So if you can put those 2 pieces of information together, you can think ahead and make a plan for anticipating the times that you know will be hardest. All right, and finally, number 1, know when and how to ask for help. The vast majority, more than 60% of college students, will seek support at their college counseling center at some point. Counseling center, their learning center on campus, or an online therapy program like June. And it's really easy to sit there and say that asking for help means I have a problem or there's something wrong with me. But really, asking for help is a sign that you have enough insight to know that you could use some support and you're strong enough to ask for that help. So before you start, or if you've started, I really encourage everyone's transition to college plan to include, what are my resources for should I need more support? who are the people that you can ask? Is it your parents? Is it a college counselor? Is there a residence advisor in your dorm? Who is it that you could go to and say, I'm really struggling? What kinds of help do you anticipate needing? If you have trouble with one of your classes, what are the supports, the academic supports on campus? If you're having trouble with your mental health, what are the mental health supports on campus? If you don't want to deal with your campus mental health supports because some people aren't comfortable or there's a wait list, what are other options that I can pursue? Knowing those ahead of time make it easier to ask for that help when you need it. And I'm going to stop there, and I'm happy to answer questions that folks in the audience have or want to put in the chat. Would love to hear about folks who are making this transition, if there are things that you're finding particularly stressful, or would like to balance in the transition that you'd love to problem solve. Okay. To everybody out there listening, I hope you have a great transition to school. Please remember to take care of yourself. Remember that your mental health is as important as your grades and your classes and making new friends, because a well-functioning you is the first step to all the rest of that happening. So please take care, and thanks so much for attending.